I'm Duncan Parks from Hoylake on the Wirral. I had, I would say, a very happy childhood, an idyllic childhood, parents that were together. My OCD and the mental illness kicked in around the age of 11 when you go to high school, and it just meant that I was living with at a very heightened level of stress and anxiety and not confiding in anyone or sharing the problem, so it just built up and built up. It rules your life, takes over your life, gets in your way completely, you know. I couldn't relax, I couldn't rebel, I couldn't be normal really. This went on, again I was in secret, not telling anybody, and the OCD just kind of, it was like a volcano, it just erupted, like it hadn't been dealt with, so it erupted. And then a few years later, I became extremely depressed. I was very ill with depression, I was housebound. And then I became manic in the August of 1999. Within the space, I was down on the floor with depression, and then within a week I was a completely different person, very, very sick.
It was a huge shock. It just erupted in our midst, and we saw our son in such distress almost overnight. From our point of view here, we saw him speed up.
Yeah, I was just a law unto myself. Just your confidence goes through the roof. So then I started explaining my OCD, which was like the biggest secret I had in my whole life, to old ladies or anyone who would listen at bus stops. And you think back when you return to being depressed, and you think, oh, did I do that? And scared the old lady or upset her or embarrassed myself. On one occasion when I was manic, I stayed awake for practically 3 days, just couldn't switch off.
It was utterly exhausting to be a part of. It was terrifying to feel that we were going into a place we'd not been to, and we didn't know what the outcome would be. We had no idea. Our first experiences in those first year or so at Duncan's illness of the psychiatric services, the support mechanisms, were not altogether very helpful. It was the first time I came up against an accusation, and it felt like an accusation of being an overprotective mother. I was, if you like, pigeonholed by somebody who didn't know us, who was meeting us through our son's illness for the first time and making comments like, you won't let go of your children, you must let go and let him be a man, and this sort of thing. And this was, I couldn't even begin to get my head around how anybody felt they had the right to say that without a great deal more knowledge. So it certainly clouded my feelings of being able to give them a good background as to who Duncan really was, not this sick, very, very sick young man. Probably a year and a half later, he had a really terrible crisis. The second crisis was absolutely terrifying, to see him so completely out of control. He was very, very close to being sectioned, but he went in as a volunteer.
Arriving in hospital and then seeing the SHOs and seeing the psychiatrist, it's a belittling experience and a very painful experience, because you want to be out in the world, doing what you want to be doing, not being ill. Nothing's kind of in your control. I've had psychiatrists in the past who've had the bedside manner of icebergs.
I've seen people in hospital talk to him in such a way that I could understand why he felt very, very angry. Don't underestimate how difficult he was to treat at times when he was acutely ill, but he was there to be, if you like, protected and cared for, and at times that was not in evidence.
They have carers, volunteers that go into other parts of the hospital to chat to patients, and I think the day when a voluntary programme can be set up for ex-patients or Samaritan type people to go into a psychiatric unit and take pressure off the nurses and just normalise it a bit more, because people only really appreciate mental illness when it affects them.
Duncan had a definite diagnosis after a hypomanic attack, which was appalling, and they then came up with the confirmed diagnosis of bipolar and OCD. A real double whammy, and very difficult for them to treat, and very difficult for him.
My current situation is I live in my parents' house, which is not what I want, it's not ideal. I'd like to go into acting and that area of things. But the biggest problem I have is with sleeping, insomnia, or sleeping until 5, 6 p.m. I can't plan things, I can't commit to things. I'm going out tonight to a drama thing and I can't go because I'm just on my last legs. It means I can't do a full-time job. So then there's a kind of repercussions of not being where you want to be. I think I would say to medical students watching this, eye contact is very important. It's just a point of respect. Listen, just to work as a team with the patient rather than a them and us scenario. Underneath the illness that's put in front of you in your surgery is a person who's funny or artistic or intelligent, and that person's buried. I'm a totally different person sitting here now than I would be if I was manic or depressed.